All right, I know you were like, Craig, we just can't get enough. I know. It was the plan. It was absolutely the plan. So if you've not heard me before, welcome to Brave Voices in Education, where boldness meets brilliance and healing meets hustle. I'm Craig Aarons, educator, advocate, and believer that our stories are sacred tools for change. Listen, today's episode is for anyone who's ever felt like they had to carry it all to be strong for everyone else. But you know what? You are a unicorn, and I'm going to actually have one of the master unicorns of herself share a little bit more about what you can do to interrogate what happens when you carrying like Beyonce talks about. And you like, well, who gonna help me? Like, who gonna be stepping in for me and carrying me? Like, I can't be doing all this by myself. I know we are never by ourselves when we are folks who have to be the shepherd to bring people along. And so if you feel like this is worn you down, you feel isolated, and you are like, look, I's getting tired now, then guess what? Today is the day, and this is a great place for you to hear some ways that you can continue to show up bravely, but know that you don't have to be invincible. It's about being real, even when the world wants you to be bulletproof, and we are going to help you to have a breakthrough today. I'm excited because this is my friend, and I just admire her so much, and all of her genius, all of her queendom, all of her artistry. And I knew that the moment we had an opportunity to connect in Atlanta, it was just going to be brilliant. So let me share a little bit more. Let me give y'all a little tea, right? Some people teach, some people perform, but rare is the soul who can do both and to change the world at the same time. Ayesis Clay is that rare soul. As the founder of Sculpted Clay Productions, Ayesis has used storytelling as an act of liberation, writing, directing, and performing works that center justice, healing, and the fullness of the Black experience. A national award winning. Let me say this again. A national, I think she international global. I really think she international global. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Award-winning educator, curriculum designer, keynote speaker, and theatrical artist, Ayesis has transformed classrooms into sanctuaries, conferences into communities, and stages into sacred places and spaces. She reminds us that education without humanity is just transaction, but education with story, that's transformation. Her one-woman shows like Standing on the Edge and her workshops on trauma-informed education are not just performances, they're interventions in a system that too often forgets its soul. Ayesis, welcome to Brave Voices. How is your heart?
It's my heart. My heart is full after all of that. Wow. Thank you, Craig. I am so happy to be here. I'm so excited to talk to you. I feel like we haven't talked in a while, so this is great.
I know.
Oh man.
What's going on? I said, what is going on? What you up to?
Oh my goodness. Chasing joy. Chasing joy. That's what I'm doing. That's what it's about right now is chasing joy in a world that is every day it seems like it's trying to steal it.
Yes.
I'm like, nope. You are not going to steal this joy because it doesn't belong to you.
Okay.
So yes, that's what I am doing. That is exactly what I'm doing in the world.
So for folks who are meeting you for the first time on our podcast, I don't know how, but let's say that this is their opportunity. Could you share a little bit more about the passion work and the mission work that's driving you forward today?
Absolutely. So, hey folks, how you doing? I am Ayesis Clay, and I am the CEO and founder of Sculpted Clay Productions, where we focus on the heart of education, So not just the students who we know are essentially the heart of the education, but also the heartbeat of the education, is the staff. And those are the ones who every day pour into classrooms, into hallways, into systems that sometimes don't love us back, but we pour into them. And so my company focuses on pouring into those people and making sure that they are well enough and have the supports that they need to sustain this heart work that we do. And the way I do that is through using the arts, using creativity, using emotional intelligence, and my magic method framework.
Okay, magic. You can't get this at Target.
Nope. Can't get this at Target. This is not mass produced.
Okay, okay. So I would love for becoming ISIS. Like that is a question I'm curious about. Can you bring us to that moment when you're like, okay, I know I am now at the intersection of passion and purpose, like becoming Isis Clay, founder of Sculpted Clay. Like, could you bring us to that moment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a theater teacher for over 18, 19 years. I still am. I'm a professor, but I was a theater teacher in high school for many, many, many years. And I started with the Maryland Department of Juvenile Services. Now, the thing about that is that when I went to college, I did not go to be a teacher.
Mm,
That was not my ministry in my mind. That was not my path.
mm,
My path was to be an actor, solely as an actor, to solely tell stories. A series of unfortunate and lovely events kind of got me into education where I realized that I loved it. I
mm,
absolutely loved it. Loved the students, loved pouring into them, loved teaching them something that I was so passionate about, right? However, I realized along the path that there were some things missing for me, some
mm,
supports missing for me. And a lot of those supports were emotional supports. Unfortunately, I have experienced a lot of loss in my teaching
mhm,
career. A lot of students have passed away that I was very close to over the years. We had very small program, and I wasn't getting the support, so I didn't realize what was happening. And so we talk about burnout and we talk about, all these things. I thought it was just burnout,
mhm,
which it was a healthy dose of that too. But I ended up leaving the classroom in 2018 when I was really at my lowest. And my thought was, you know what? This wasn't supposed to be my path anyway. I was supposed to
mm,
be an actor anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to act full time. This whole time I had been doing some acting in the evenings or whatnot. But I said, I'm going to do it full time. Forget education. It's
mm,
done. However, a very good friend of mine took me out to lunch one day and she was like, okay, so what you going to do? We're like, really, what's happening? She had a theater company at the time
mhm,
and she asked me to write something to be performed. And I wrote a solo show
mm,
called Sculpting Clay, or How I Became Mother of Unicorns. And that solo show was really an autobiographical look at my journey in education. But what it really was therapy, to be quite honest. And during that, I realized that I was dealing with a lot of stuff. And so that's where my passion and my purpose kind of flashed together because my passion is storytelling, is theater, is humanity, and showing that mirror to humanity and allowing us to see each other. But my purpose really was education. My purpose is steeped in education. No matter how far or how hard I tried to run from it during that
mhm.
time, it kept pulling me back. It kept pulling me back. I tell everybody that once a teacher, always a teacher.
Okay.
Like that's what it is, and that's how it happened. I have had the opportunity to perform it at the Kennedy Center. I've had the opportunity to perform it all across the country,
Mhm,
but it was in Washington D.C. again, about a year and a half after it performed at the Kennedy Center. I came back and I performed it in front of what was about maybe 60% of teachers. It just worked out that way. It was a lot of like former coworkers that came and brought people
okay.
to support. And they were like, you're telling my story.
Mhm,
And I'm going to be honest, Craig, it broke my heart. I mean, you wouldn't think that it would because you would think that, oh, yeah, you're connecting. But it broke my heart because in that story, I'm talking about grief as an educator.
mhm,
I'm talking about not feeling supported. I'm talking about finding the light even when the light is dim. I'm
yes,
talking about all these things. And so all these people coming to me saying, I feel like you told my story. I realized that it needs to be more than just a theatrical piece. And
yeah.
so I created curriculum around it and I created professional development, which now I've supported many schools and many districts with that in boosting emotional intelligence and both emotional wellness, first with the staff and then with the students. So that's what I do, clashing that theater, that passion with that purpose, education, and finding a very beautiful, beautiful lane right in the center.
Hmm. I appreciate you, flexing so much in this conversation. The Kennedy Center a couple of times. I mean, it's great. I'm like, okay, mm-hmm.
No, no, no. You know what? I see it as, sometimes we try to plot out our road, right?
Yeah.
Our path in life. And several times, God, the higher power, however you want to see it,
Mm,
I say God
yes.
kind of knocks us in the head and says, you know what? You're
Yeah.
walking my path, the path that I lead, not your path. And it just so happens that when we listen and when I listened to that voice and allowed that to happen, it took me to places like the Kennedy Center. It took me places like, all these other places. And I don't say that in boast. I don't say that as a boast. I
Yeah.
say that as a testimony, to be
Yeah.
quite honest.
And I say let's celebrate that. And I speak it just, but I'm like, it's a big thing for you to have an opportunity to tell a story that felt resonant for so many folks in the audience, for people who have suffered in silence, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
there's something you said in a conversation we did another podcast together at one point, and you talked about you said two things that still stay with me. One is that you can't teach a wounded soul. Let me
Mm,
think. Let's see. You can't teach a wounded soul until you see their humanity first. Something to
mhm,
that
mhm,
effect.
mhm, mhm,
And that you can leverage art as for the to foster liberation and radical healing.
mhm, mhm.
And when I initially met you at Dr. EJT, Erica Jordan Thomas, seven figure educator for those who
Shout out.
hey, we love you, EJT. For those who, at that time, I know that I was at a crossroads myself, having just come through bringing an entire community across through COVID and more
Yeah, yeah.
post George Floyd. Many leaders that I was in conversation with also could say internally, like, that is my story too. Because
Mhm.
I'm in circles where that was the continued conversation. We
Yes.
met and we were like burned out, and we felt like the world just kept happening to us. But here you
Mhm,
have to put on this hat. You have to have this
mhm,
face of grace. You have to have this poise. You have
mhm.
to, figure out how you are going to also keep as many people as safe as you can in whatever ways that may mean. But what is the work you're doing for yourself? I think about Iyanla Van Zant, who talks about, like, what is your own personal safety plan, your own wellness plan? How are
Yeah.
you actually making sure that as she good gracious, she said she had gotten a microwave or something like that, and she's like, we sit here and read the training manual for the microwave and figuring out how we operate that. Well, what is your operating manual for how you manage your healing?
Yes.
Like, all of this hit me at the same time. Like, I was very much watching a ton of Iyanla Fix My Life and trying to get centered on,
Mm.
okay, God, what's next? Because for
Yeah.
me, for me, eczema shows up on my hands, on my
Mm,
arms,
mhm,
and then it started to show up in my face.
mm.
And I didn't understand that that was not just inflammation, that was stress.
Yes.
I was, for the first time, had been diagnosed with stress that also meant that there was a prescription that would
Mhm.
I had to make a decision on taking on, okay, do I want this medication to help me manage? But there were side effects that come with this medication.
Right.
And did I want to now be medicated or self-medicating to manage all of the things as a school leader, as a teacher, as someone who's a role model for other human beings
Mhm,
in my
mhm.
sphere?
Yeah.
And to have heard how you shared so vulnerably your story of where you were, as well as what was the conversations that other educators were having with you, I felt like I was in the room with you in 2018. And even though it was like 2022, 2021, I'm like, it was so resonant. And it's unfortunate that even today, that story,
Yeah.
if you decided to do that wonderful show again live, how many folks would still be raising their hand like, yes, I'm back again, and yes, it's still going on.
Yo, Craig. So it is. I still tour it. It's a part of my professional development. It's the first part of the professional development.
Mhm.
I come in sidebar with professional development because I was a teacher. I get the dread of sitting in very boring professional developments.
Mhm.
So I start from a place of edutainment, entertainment, however you want to say it, and I hook the staff that way. So yes, it's still being performed all over. And the very
Cool.
last time I performed it, I have to be very intentional about almost trigger warnings because we
Mm.
talk about things that really trigger a lot of folks in education. But you said something at the very top of this interview. It's something that I say every time I come into schools to the principal. I come in, they bring me in for their staff's emotional wellness and resilience.
Mhm.
But the very first question I ask them is, how's your heart? Because you hit it right on the head.
Mhm.
You hit it right on the head. The principal is the linchpin of this, is the leader of this. And so if they're not well, if they're not practicing good self-care, if they're not dealing with their own stress, then it's going to trickle down.
Absolutely.
Emotional wellness is not a luxury. It's not a luxury. It's leadership. It's leadership. And, my goal when I come into schools is, to really talk about how burnout shouldn't be our baseline.
Yeah.
It really should not be our baseline. And if we want thriving schools, we really need thriving educators.
Mm.
And this starts with leaders modeling boundaries and practicing emotional intelligence and getting really real about staff support,
Mhm.
not just, a shout out every Friday or
Mhm.
a wear your jeans day on Friday, or, it's a whole lot deeper than that. And it's a whole lot deeper than that for leadership as well.
Yeah. I'm curious. I imagine for you in doing this incredible work, and that there may have been some detours that you've had to
Yeah.
travel, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious for you where there may have been a pivotal moment where you really question, okay, is this the thing I'm supposed to do? And then something happens that actualizes I am actually in purpose and passion. I am doing the thing I was designed to do. And I'm curious whether or not you would be, brave enough to share a little glimpse of that moment.
Craig, I'm actually welling up a little bit right now because what comes up often,
Mm.
and I know we've already talked about the show, but inside of the play, I talk about very candidly about the loss of one of my students. Actually, I go through the loss of a couple, but the very last one is the one that's more raw.
Yeah.
And we lost him in 2016, but it's still, grief doesn't have a timeline.
Yeah.
And to perform this piece, and you said it being raw, being vulnerable, it requires all of that. And sometimes I can get through it and I'm fine. And other times to work very, very hard to stay present. And I wonder, is it worth it?
Mm.
Is it worth tearing off that band-aid,
Mhm.
and exposing? Is it worth telling this story in the manner in which I tell it? And what's coming up, I support a school in Queens, New York. And when I performed the show, one of the teachers came up to me, and this was one of those days when I was like having a very hard time keeping it together. And she came up to me and she said, I needed to hear that. I needed to know that it's okay for teachers to grieve students, that we don't just have to move past them like they didn't exist.
Mm.
And of course, that brought on the tears even more so
Yeah.
at that time. But that told me, at least as far as that portion of the work that I do, that we do need to talk about it. We do need to go beyond that announcement that principals make when unfortunate and horrible things happen, that grief counselors will be available should you need them. Hopefully, you have never had to say that. But that is the reality for a lot of principals. They have to get on the intercom and have to say this. But we have to go past that. We have to make sure that everybody is taken care of. Because when that happens, to be quite honest, students can raise their hand and say, I need to talk to a counselor. Can
Yeah.
I get a pass? Absolutely. Pass is written and off they go. But when a teacher is in a planning period, rarely do they have the time to stop and talk to a grief counselor or stop and deal with that. What normally happens is they push past.
Yeah.
And not just the teacher, the principal, because a million things happen. Life is still running and going and going and going. Students still need, parents still need, community still needs and we don't deal with it. We don't, it almost feels like we push forward as if they never even existed. So I realized that my voice is helping people heal, even if my voice shakes, even if sometimes it's a little hard. And so, yeah, so that's also a part of the work that I do. And we talk about that a little bit, but the majority of what we talk about is the trifecta of burnout, vicarious trauma, and compassion fatigue. But yeah, so that was one of those times when I realized that no, I can't stop. I have to keep going. This is what I'm meant to do. This is the path that I was given and the story to tell. And to be quite honest, I am grateful because Jerome's name is spoken in cities and in schools and across the country
Mhm.
in ways that it's just beautiful.
Thank you for being vulnerable enough to share a little bit more insight on what's inside the clay, right?
Inside the clay. I love that. Inside the clay.
Yes. Is it inside the clay or in the clay?
Are you talking about my show?
Yeah.
Oh
The
no, it's sculpting clay.
no.
Sculpting
You
clay.
had just you said it was either inside the clay or something like that at the beginning of what you were sharing, and I don't know whether or not that is a part of the bigger show. It's like you kind of give introspection
Mhm.
on what has happened, how is that showing, how did that show for you? But I was kind of tapping back to something I heard you say.
Gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
It actually, the story of Jerome hits home because one of the students I served in the last community I was at, he black boy, brilliant black boy, but found himself getting in his own way. He was
Mhm.
troubled by the divorce that
Mm,
occurred between his mom and his dad. And he had a little sister who idolized him a great deal. And I heard that, and it was in the news probably a few weeks ago, that he was murdered. He had left us as a middle schooler who had not finished his journey with us, but
mm,
had finished his journey with us because his mother was like, we need to find a new place because you all have a narrative that you're carrying about him.
mm.
And you're living into that narrative versus what his potential could be. And it's not a but. It's and the mom felt like we in essence were condemning her for her parenting and were not holding the father who had not shown up many times
Ooh.
responsible for some of the choices and decisions that this young man had made. And I had just arrived on the scene and I had like a year with him. And so he left us to go to another community. I knew some folks over at the community he was going to join, and I just said, hey, I want to do a handoff to just let you know you got a brilliant young man who needs some TLC. He's joining you all soon. And he had his own experiences there, which weren't positive. I say all this to say, I haven't started doing the work to mourn him yet. I know that I don't have questions about whether or not I did right by him because I believe that with the tools I had, I offered what I could to him, tried to block and tackle, tried to, provide some additional supports. But there are times where I'm like, could I have said something differently? Could I have put him in a different, like what could have steered him? Should he have went to this other community? Should he have went somewhere else? And we'll never know. And I also recognize that you have to be a leader who, in my opinion, someone has to create an experience so you understand how to hold grief or bring people in to help manage the emotion that's in the space. Me having like impact, like I know that I have inherited like empath abilities from my mom's side specifically. Like it's very clear on her side. And when I feel the environment and walk in the
Mhm.
environment, I'm like,
Yeah.
there's something very serious is happening.
Yep.
But I understood that at times, if my emotions are arrested and I don't necessarily have the tools, how then do I translate that to other folks who also need that TLC? How do I
Absolutely.
do that for teachers and staff members who are crumbling?
Yeah.
Right. And so you having to also be able to say, well, while I may not be able the container that can hold it all, I can help find additional
Mm.
support so you have what you need or offer that. And so, as you
Yeah.
talk about it, I think about that often. Some leaders, we believe that we are supposed to be masters of all.
Oh, no. Oh my gosh. No, we're never meant to be masters of all. We're meant to be in community, you know. There's strength in the community, way more strength than in one. And so I would hope that those leaders that do feel that or are being made to feel that way.
Hmm.
Let's talk about that
Yeah.
because they have pressures coming down,
Mhm.
just like teachers have pressures coming down. They have pressures coming down from above as well in districts and regions and things like that. But if they are being made to feel like they have to be the sole container
Mhm.
of all of the emotional wellness, the emotional container for the school, no, absolutely not. You can't. You
Mhm.
cannot. On a smaller scale, that was one of the things that broke me,
Hmm.
honestly, is feeling like I needed to be the emotional container for all of my students. And and I couldn't. I couldn't. So yes, so I'm glad you spoke on that. I'm glad you spoke on that. And my condolences. I do want to say my condolences to you and everyone who loved this young man. But it's a thing, whether we lose the and so when I talk about grief in schools,
Mhm.
of course the ultimate grief that many teachers suffer is the loss of life. But there's also a smaller type of grief, right? I worked in a high school that was, I saw my students for all 4 years. So my program, it was a large high school, but my small program was a theater program and I saw them every 4 years. And so I saw them grow up from like 13 years old, to 17, 18 years old. And then they're gone, right? They're gone. And you have a whole nother crew of students coming. And I can imagine that a lot of school leaders feel this way too. You see students for years walk through the halls, you meet their parents, you know their story, and then they're gone.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of sweet sadness about that can happen. That can happen. So sometimes it's like, oh gosh, yes, thank goodness. Go on to the next one.
I'm ready.
Go on. But then there's also that kind of sweetness. And sometimes we don't see them ever again in life. It's always that wonder, like, how are they doing? I wonder if they
Mhm.
fulfill that dream of being that, or I wonder if whatever the case may be. And
Right.
so I think we do ourselves a disservice in schools
Mhm.
when we ignore the fact that we teach in a very human,
Mhm.
or we work in a very human environment,
Yeah.
human focused environment. And when we just focus on data, we just focus on numbers and not the fact that we work with humans, we serve humans, and we forget the humanity that's inherent in education. We do ourselves a disservice. And that's where we start having issues with culture. That's where we start having issues, with people relating to each other, and teachers being out of touch with students, or leaders being out of touch with teachers. Now, when we forget that we work in a very human environment.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate that. I also, I was thinking about a prior conversation we had. One of the things that you said that I hold dear is that our storytelling is not just about survival.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
about, and this is me paraphrasing, this is an opportunity to open us up to new worlds.
Oh,
And so
yeah.
that we don't have to live by the
Mm-hmm.
story that we've always lived. We don't have to live the story of someone else and what they
Mm-hmm.
project onto us. We have an opportunity today to actually make a decision to
Mm-hmm.
do something, do a new thing
Mm-hmm.
that can
Mm-hmm.
lead us to new places of joy and
Mm-hmm.
liberation and freedom,
Mm-hmm.
and resilience. For someone today who is listening right now, they are standing on the edge. They are hearing this conversation. They're at a crossroads and they're feeling uncertain. They may be questioning some things. What is one brave step you would tell them to take after hearing just a glimpse of your story today?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm going to answer your question, but I want to preface it with this. I was at that precipice where, well, you've heard my story, where right before I left the classroom, before you know, I've been at that precipice many times. And a good friend of mine, I was having a conversation with her, and I was like, why do I feel so stuck? Why do I feel so stuck? Like I feel like I can't make a decision. And she said, because when you make a decision, you're probably feeling like it's the death of the other decision.
Hmm.
So you're at a crossroads, and if you choose this one, then this path dies.
Yes.
And she was like, life doesn't work that way. Life is these almost like neuropathic ways
Yeah.
where you may find yourself back on this path years later. So that kind of helped me not stay so stuck, because I was like, you're right. I'm thinking of, oh, I'll never do this, or I'll never be this, or something is dead if I choose this. Something dies when I choose this. I would say this. What really is helpful for me is to write them down, and then write both of them down on a sheet of paper, and then create a life for okay, so if I take this path, what does my life look like?
Hmm.
And dream about what it could look like. If I take this path, what would my life look like? Right? And if you say, okay, I'm going to go this way, but you're like, then that means you need to go this way.
Hmm. Is that it?
That's it.
That's
That's
the
literally it.
prescription. That's the
That's
prescription.
that's the prescription. That's my prescription. If I'm like, if I make a decision and I'm like, and I have to kind of like, it takes me a second to, or I ruminate, not even a second, but I'm ruminating still on this, then that means that I probably need to take that. It's about courage, right? It's about courage. And we cannot live our lives in fear. We weren't meant to live our lives in fear. And so I have always been the type of person to dream big. When I first went to college, I was a biology major. I went to high school for science and math. Like legit, I went to a high school where I lived on campus for science and math, the North Carolina School of Science and Math. It was like a boarding school for really smart kids. And so, yeah, that was my high school experience. And then I went to college at Howard. And after my first semester, I was like, nope, I'm going to be a theater major. And my mother had a fit. She had a whole fit. Of course she had a fit. Of course she had a fit. That wasn't the plan. And so I've always dreamt big. And so I guess my biggest takeaway or my biggest thing to say to someone who is playing small or who is at the corner of a crossroads is, what's the biggest life that you can dream for yourself? What is the biggest thing that you can dream for yourself? Why not go for that? Why not choose that? Why not create that? Because you can. Your choices create who you become. So, yeah, choose big.
Some folks will hear this and be like, she is on that Kool-Aid.
I mean, and maybe, but honestly, listen, Craig. No. Craig, and for anybody else that's like, she's on that Kool-Aid, I want you to really think about this. This is coming from someone who was a theater teacher at a school right outside of Washington, D.C., who has 2 children, at the time, 2 very small children, a husband, a mortgage. Okay, bills, right? But my biggest fear, one of my biggest fears, was at the end of my life, I feared that I would have regrets, that I would be saying, I wish I had done. Why didn't I? Because I was too scared. I don't ever want to say, or to look in my children's faces and say that mommy was too scared to do something. Because what I pour into them is that they can do it. They just have to figure out a way, figure out the plan, work the plan. So what does that look like for me to say, no, I can't do that? So call it drinking the Kool-Aid, call it, I don't know, call it whatever you want. But at the end of your life, do you want to be sitting on the sideline saying, if only I had done, if only I wasn't so scared to do?
And something I think we both have heard before, if you dare to travel the road and try, what's the worst that can happen is if you wind up back where you started. Or what happens if you actually move closer into that manifestation of the thing you want? Come on.
Mean. We were not meant to live lives of in fear. We just weren't. I don't believe that in my heart, that we were meant to live a life full of fear. We were lived to be brave, to listen to that small voice that tells us, you just got to get quiet for a second and listen to that voice.
Yes.
That voice has never steered me wrong.
Okay. That's a word. That is a word. That is a word. Well, before we go, I just want to, play a game with you. It's fun. It's a little pop culture.
I love it.
A little fun, a little random.
Okay, hold on, Craig. Now I ain't in the high school classroom anymore, so my pop culture might be a little.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'm just gonna throw out a couple of scenarios, and you just tell me which one you'd be like, "Yep, I would absolutely do this." Or, "Nah, Craig, I'm all set with both of these or either of these." It's fun. It's cool. So this one is up your alley. I feel like you've done this before. People actually go out and look for this actual video on online. Would you compete in a lip sync battle against Lizzo or try stand-up comedy at a sold-out comedy club?
Ooh, definitely the battle with Lizzo. Now, yes, I'm gonna tell you what. I'm gonna tell you what. I think I'm hilarious. My husband thinks I'm not funny at all, and so it would be horrible to get on stage and bomb. But I got a little, something.
Okay. All right. You might join Lizzo in the new album. Okay.
Hey. Who knows?
That's what I hear. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah. Would you walk a full New York Fashion Week runway with no modeling experience, or maybe you do, I don't know, or host the BET Awards live with no script?
Okay. I'm going to say model, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to say model. I'm going to say model because I get joked all the time by my son that I don't really listen to any of the music that's coming out, new music.
Mhm.
So I would be on that stage talking about, yeah, I have no idea who this is, but they just won best album. So if that's you, you come on up here, but I don't know who you are. So yeah, I don't think I do good at the BET Awards off script. I think I do a twirl now. I
Okay,
was on the modeling team at North Carolina Central University. Yes, so I got a little bit of something going on, but yeah, no, that BET.
I got one more for you.
Okay.
Would you compete in a versus battle against a surprise celebrity or crash a major award show after party?
My gosh, I'm crashing the after party. I am crashing the after party. Craig, one thing that you may not know about me is I like to party. I will dance all night as long as you got some music on. I'm dancing. So yeah, I'm crashing the after party. I'm crashing, and I'm not gonna be one of those crashes like I said that's gonna be sitting on the corner drinking something. No, 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 no. I'm gonna be right by the big speaker
Yeah,
or in the middle of the dance floor dancing all night.
that's what's
That's
up.
me.
I'm right
That's me.
there with you. I'm right there with you. Before we log off, how can folks stay connected to you, follow your journey, or support your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on social media at, I have two. My
Mhm.
educational one for Sculpted Clay Productions, which has my professional development and things like that, is at Sculpted Clay,
Mhm.
and that's on Instagram. Or you can follow my artistic journey on Instagram or Facebook at Isis, Ayesis. Just my first name. And you can always go to my website, sculptedclayproductions.com.
Hey, global superstar she is. Y'all better get in now before you can't get in. I'm just saying. The price tomorrow's price is gonna be different from today. I'm just saying.
Listen, I'm doing keynotes now. My solo show is my keynote, so I'm booking keynotes now. So yeah.
Okay, I gotta get my tickets. All right. Isis, thank you so much for being part of this incredibly hearted experience with me on Brave Voices of Education. I appreciate you so much for doing it.
Man, Craig, I thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be on this. This is dope. It's amazing.
Well, we're just beginning. I'm sure you will join again. We'll have more things to talk about. I am absolutely sure. But for my fam, for the CAM fam, who's part of the Brave Voices of Education, you are part of the journey. And I'm glad you're going to be part of the family. If this spoke to you today, any part of this, share this cup of courage with your people, your staff, your village. If you are looking to go deeper into this work, I'm going to share all of ISIS's information so you can be connected and definitely plug in. Get what you need because this is about thriving, radical joy, and your own personal liberation story that you deserve. You deserve it all. If you are interested in being a guest or you have questions or you want some free stuff, because we at CCM give out free things, just DM us Brave Voices and we will gift you a link so that you can get that free gift as well as more incredible things. But until next time, we want you to love your boldness, love being whole, love your brave, and love being you. I'll catch y'all soon on the next one. Y'all take care.